girl.
Well, this is great because I'm seeing people I haven't seen for a little while. And Mark is here. Wave your hand, Mark. Rich, of course. And Kip. And they were all on the first teams. Now, interesting enough, oh, and Kip and Rich were also assistant coaches after they left the team. So they really stayed involved. I have a picture up here of the very first team. Some of these kids had never played hockey. They'd skated, but they'd never played hockey. We had some who had played years before. Rich might have been one of the only ones who had played the year before. But if you want to come up later, and there are a lot of relatives here of kids on that first team. You want to raise your hands? Any relative? Yeah, there we go. And then relatives of kids of the later teams as well. It's actually been 40 years. When I started thinking about it, I went, oh my goodness, that's a long time. So it's been 40 years since we started the process. And that was Richard's fault, because he did not want to transfer to Edgewood to play hockey. He wanted to play for Verona. So Gary and I said, okay, well, we've got a coach, and he's willing to do it for nothing. He did that for 8 years. And I can probably organize a little bit because I had been the treasurer for Westmoreland. I'd been multiple times team rep, so why not, right? So we went to the high school and we talked to the administration. Needless to say, they did not want a hockey team in the high school. In fact, one of the administrators said to me, "This will be in my high school over my dead body." He did live. So we decided to go a different route. We went to the school board. And that was quite an interesting project. We had one school board member say, okay, I suppose the next thing you're going to want is soccer in the high school. And I suppose you're probably even going to push for something like gymnastics. I said, I'm only looking at hockey right now. Right now. Which, by the way, my sister-in-law, Candy Feld, started soccer in Verona as a youth group. And Gary also coached soccer for a number of years. She had too many kids sign up and not enough coaches. And Gary played a little bit of soccer in high school, and so, or in college rather, and so he was the coach, and his brother Rick, Candy's husband, was the assistant coach. Sideline, that team lost every game the first session. They won a couple the second, and by the second year, they were winning everything, and they wanted to split up the team. And I went to the meeting and I said, I'm going to let everybody know why you're splitting up this team. These were all kids nobody wanted. These were the, they picked the kids. And Gary got in trouble a lot at the high school level as well, because he felt that if a kid came to practice and he worked hard, he should play equal time, even in high school. And I think you guys will remember some of that. We actually had one parent tried to get rid of him because his kid didn't get to play more than everybody else. But the kids and the board stuck behind Gary, and he stayed for a total of 8 years. Anyway, when we were at the school board, we won by 1 vote. And the person that I really remember is Molly Freitag, who most of us know. And Molly said, well, my kids don't want to play hockey. They don't even enjoy skating, but they want to wrestle. She said, who are we to say if kids want to play hockey that they can't do it for their high school? And so they took a vote, and like I said, we won by 1 vote. So the other thing we wanted to do is make sure these kids got a letter. They're working really hard. Well, that was okay. We agreed to play by all the WIA rules, which we had a couple kids who were close to not being eligible, but they worked their butts off, and by the first game, everybody was eligible. And when you have only 11 kids, you all better be eligible, because otherwise it's a real struggle. So we got to earn letters, but they had to have crossed hockey sticks on it. But we got a regular Verona letter, and we got the crossed hockey sticks. So we were kind of short on money, and some of you may know that hockey goalie pads are a fortune. And we can't really expect that person to buy their own goalie pads at this time anyway. So I went to the Blue Line Club, which I had dealt with in the past at some other hockey associations, and they gave us $500 for goalie pads, and that just saved us. And we bought them from Bob Suter, who was able to get a pair of used pads, but only used very slightly, and they turned them back in. They just didn't like them. So we got gloves and pads, and Bob was a big supporter of our team for a long time. And then, I don't know if any of you know Carol Marshall.
Yeah.
Carol's son is now coaching the Verona team. Jim, right? Joel. Okay. She was so helpful also. We wanted to have nice uniforms, and she did all the embroidery and everything on our first jerseys. And she was just a wonderful lady. She's gotten a lot of awards. She's been wonderful for hockey all over the county. Okay, John Rader was an assistant coach the first year for Gary. And then, as I said, later on, Bob Brockman was an assistant coach and also took over the JV team. Can you imagine in 4 years we went from 11 kids to having a JV team as well? It just took off. And so did youth hockey. And that was one of the things we had talked about. We don't have a youth hockey team. So why we're getting these kids who had never played hockey, we didn't have a team. There was a team in Mount Horeb, a few kids played there, a few kids played in Madison. But as soon as we had that high school team, the youth hockey just took off, which is wonderful, and now we have that beautiful rink over here. All right, I'm losing track. Now, any of you who know this as well as I do, Bev and Dingles and all, please just jump in and say something, because sometimes I forget things, which my family really knows. We first just played in a league that was just more of almost a pickup. And so we were registered at the state as a B hockey club. And so we actually did go to state. I can't remember how we did. I remember we played a lot of games outdoors. And either the second, or Rich and Kip, and second game was maybe, a state game was up at Marinette.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was cold, but it was very sunny, and on the south side of the boards, there was dirt, because that had melted. And then there was the rink, and we did get homered up there, or we would have won. Because that was
Careful, you have an official sitting in the room.
Well, it wasn't you. It wasn't you. And Rich had stopped a goal beautifully. He hit the puck out from the player, and the other team starts yelling. The fans start yelling that it had to be a what do they call it?
Penalty shot.
Penalty shot. Thank you. Thank you. I told you my mind kind of goes crazy. penalty shot, penalty shot. Well, it hadn't been called a penalty shot. It hadn't even been called anything at that point. So all of a sudden they call it a penalty shot. And John Sticka was a great goalie. And he just, that one goal he missed. So we lost and got second place.
Was that a double overtime, wasn't it, Rich?
Huh?
That was at least double, I think so.
Might have been.
What is that, Kip?
I have to go referee game and it's
Well,
not, I'm not
I
saying
know
I'm
that you're-
I actually do have a game with the rink right now.
Okay. It obviously was not you that
No,
home.
wait, wait.
Kip,
I'm
what
gonna
did
go
you
over
say?
some kids from Hudson right now.
Ah, hold on.
Actually, it was double
Just a
overtime.
minute.
It was a double overtime that we lost in. I don't even know. It was a double overtime that we lost in, so it was even more devastating to lose to the penalty shot, which was definitely, the refs were not fair, so. with the-
That- And in most cases, the refs have been pretty good, but that one was,
It was one-sided the whole game.
it was, and that was devastating. But anyway,
Walk home too then for that.
one of the sets of games we played, and I know I'm just telling kind of stories, but this is kind of, this was very interesting time. A lot of the teams did not have indoor arenas. And we went to Unalaska and La Crosse and played outside, and it's along where the river is, and it was cold. And so luckily, many of we mothers had hair dryers with us. And so between periods, the kids would run into the warming house, take their skates off, and we'd have to use our hair dryers to try and warm those skates up enough so the kids could go back out and play in that freezing cold. And also when we were there, we didn't have a whole lot of money. And so I had arranged for the kids to stay at the houses of the kids from La Crosse. Yeah. Well, that was a little bit of an interesting situation because we had at least one who did not want to stay at one of the houses. And if you can imagine with that few players, and we're going, you don't stay at the house, you don't play tomorrow. And I think he knew we meant it. And then it was fine, and I think everybody had a good time, didn't you? Rich? Yep.
For the most part, it just was what it was, you know.
Okay, for the most part. But to me, that was a way of really getting to know the other players and so forth. And when we would go to state, we didn't do that. By the third year, these guys were gone, and we moved to A class. No?
This year I was a senior.
So our second year. No,
Third.
yeah, that would
Third
be
year I was a
third.
senior.
Because you were sophomore, junior, senior, yeah. We moved to the A class. We also didn't have a real league in this area. We were playing more of a, you know, just Dane County league. And so one of the coaches from McFarland and I decided we needed to start a league. So we had the Capital Hockey League. And we were then co-commissioners. And then along the way, we had some cheerleaders. Charlotte Johnston was our liaison to the high school. This was more after we actually had some officers. They wrote up bylaws. I mean, when I did it, I just put out a list of things that this is how, and it's in that packet, this is how we want to run the program, this is what the kids have to do, etc. But then we had bylaws and officers, and Charlotte decided that it would be good to have cheerleaders. And I thought it was a great idea. So if you want to be a cheerleader on the Verona High School hockey team, you had to pass a test on the rules, and you had to be able to skate. She definitely did not want anybody cheering in the wrong place, the wrong cheer. And so I remember one time we were going up to a tournament, and my parents went to almost every game. And so they had a couple of the cheerleaders ride with them. My dad had 2 girls, but he was still more used to the boys. And afterwards he said, those girls never shut up all the way up and all the way down. That was really funny. Okay, I think by 85, 86, we had 20 varsity and we had junior varsity. One of the things I really enjoyed when we had that first team is after the games, Gary and I would treat the kids to pizza. And it was a lot of fun to be able to sit around, mostly at Pizza Hut. It's no longer Pizza Hut, down on Verona Road, and have some pizza and soda. And you know, when you start something like this, those first kids are near and dear to your heart. And they were terrific. I have in my slides, when they get going here, the price of ice time. And we practiced early morning at Madison Ice Arena. And we shared that time with Edgewood High School. And I remember some of the teachers getting a little bit upset because we were having these kids at the ice rink somewhere around 6 o'clock in the morning. And they said, these kids are going to be awful. They're going to be tired, they're going to fall asleep. And then a couple months later, I'm all of a sudden talking to some of the teachers, and they said, boy, do we love those days that they have hockey first. They're actually awake when they get to class. So that was kind of fun. I think maybe we'll just start the slide. Does anybody have any questions, or those of you who really know this program want to say something?
When did we,
Just for people with hearing aids.
okay, when my boys were playing, it was a hockey club. It wasn't an official high school sport. When did it change over from being just a club to acceptable high school sport?
Yeah, I don't know the year. I know that Gary
was
coached for
97.
8 years.
I think it was 97.
97 over there?
97. Okay, so it was a long ways past that.
It was my, I think it was my younger brother was on the first team, and I think that was
So,
97.
can you say that again?
My younger brother was on the first WIA team.
We were sophomores.
Was it?
John,
Yeah,
John.
John Dingle.
And that would have been 91.
91,
or 92.
okay, okay, great.
Yeah, because we graduated
So
in
almost
94,
10
we were at
years.
3 years.
Okay.
A little more than 10 years.
Yeah, please.
I've got a hearing aid, so I didn't quite get, these cheerleaders you had, did they skate?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, great.
Oh, yeah, they had to be able to skate, and they went out on the ice, and they did their cheers out on the ice. And they were also then, of course, cheering with the bench. So,
My wife was one of them.
oh, yeah. She could tell you they had to know hockey, I'll tell you.
She still does.
Charlie Johnson was actually a school home ec teacher, right? So
Yes, yes.
people know that she's part of the school too, so,
And her son played.
yes.
Can you repeat that, Mary, to the microphone, please?
She was a teacher at the high school.
What was her name?
Charlotte Johnston.
Okay.
And her husband was our first president of the club.
Mary?
The other point was that because this was a school club, there was no school funds involved other than, I think later years they paid the representative to the high school a minimum, you know, like a coach or a club. They usually pay that teacher a couple $100 extra for representing that club. So the parents and the Felts had to cough up the money for all of this. And so it was an expensive sport. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I have one of the slides will show, I think one of them has my handwritten budget on there. We did a lot of fundraising. We sponsored softball tournaments. We sold,
Great
well,
homes.
at one point we bought a popcorn machine and we would walk it down to the ball games and sell popcorn. So we made some money. It wasn't a lot, but we made some money there. We sold fertilizer. What can I say? Anything to make money, right? And the kids all had to work and the parents all worked. And we didn't just say, okay, we're gonna do this fundraiser. If there was a softball tournament, we kept track of the hours everybody worked. And then the amount of money that we brought in got divided up by the number of total hours that was worked. And then whoever worked, they got their number of hours per hour credited toward their skating fees. So none of this socialism stuff. Everybody did their own share. And yeah, it wasn't as, I'm freaking out my family over there.
Did you want to show your slides?
Oh, I have to do that?
Oh,
Okay.
I can
Yeah,
check
what do
that.
I do here?
So, if you push down, that goes down. And you also have a laser pointer here, so you can point at people. Don't point at them
I
on
have
here.
to multitask
The middle
besides.
button, middle button goes down.
Okay, all right. Well, there's the team. Little ways in '84, somebody from the club must have gotten a hold of Russ Feingold. That or maybe Charlotte did it. So we got a commendation for starting the club. And on those handouts, if someone who really wants one didn't get one or can't grab one off another table, I can make more copies of that. This is the letter from the Blue Line Club that said they would give us the $500. These were our first bylaws, and those are also in those handouts. I had nothing to do with this, or it would not have been done as well, but this is something, the philosophy that we had in the beginning, and this to me was very important. And like I said, Gary felt that anybody who made the team should play. And we even picked up a player off of the basketball team who hadn't been able to do anything but sit the bench, and he came onto the hockey team and loved it because he got his fair share of playing. I don't know, I'm not going to read any of this. Okay, here we are with our first officers. Dick Johnston, who was the husband of Charlotte, and Bob Pricer, his son was playing, Shirley Hilgers. And at this point, all I was doing was scheduling the games. I wasn't running much of anything anymore. And you know what these officers did? This was wonderful for Gary and I, because when we would go to a tournament, they decided that the club should pay for our hotel room, which was really nice. And here's where Rich and Kip were assistant coaches. And you can see that those big fees down there to be part of the team. 200 for junior varsity and $335 to $350 for first-time varsity and $3 to $315 for varsity. I can tell you that would not work anymore. This is from 1984, and these were all the kids, varsity and junior varsity, and their parents, and I know we've got some of those parents here. All right, here is, this is from a later time, how much our ice time was costing us. I can tell you now that you need to put probably a 2 or 3 in front of each of those numbers in order to get ice time now. So, yeah, this just says you've got about 40 players. This was, oh, I actually must have typed this instead of just taking my handwritten. So there we had a whole $546 on hand, and we needed $5,500. So we did a whole lot of fundraising and payments by the parents, but I think they'll all agree it was worth it. This is an article, and this is also in there, where we, you know, it's about the whole hockey team and what was happening. And what have we got? Leadership? Oh, okay. And that's one of the trophies that we got. And they spelled our son's name wrong. It's D-Y-L-A-N, not D-I-L-L-O-N. This is the Capital Conference champions. And I'm just going to kind of run through all of this. You can see some of these kids. That's the picture that we have up here.
Could you name, I'm sorry, what? Could you name all those people?
Let's see, Jeff Bandy Zandy, he was our only senior. He's
Back
on the
row.
far. Huh?
Back row, starting with the back row left.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Dan. That was Jeff Bandy Zandy. If I get these wrong, somebody help
Joey
me out.
Byer.
Pardon?
Joey Byers.
Yeah, Joey.
Bill Schrader.
Bill Schrader. Gary is dwarfed by them there, because I think he doesn't have skates on.
Eric Schmidt.
Eric Schmitz.
Dick Dingle.
Dick Dingle.
Gee. Okay, I don't know.
Scott.
John Reader.
John Rader.
Oh, yeah, John Rader. There's Kip.
The bottom.
Bottom row.
Bottom row is Kip. And Sticka, Jim Sticka, Scott Dahlk, John Sticka, Rich, and Adam Sheriff. Now, there are several of these kids who hadn't played hockey before, but they came out. And one of the things that Gary did that he really enjoyed was he would go to the outdoor rink. That's how we picked up most of our JV kids. And he'd go down there and watch these kids playing pond hockey, and then he'd invite them to come and try out for the hockey team. And sometimes we had kids that he knew needed some help, which he would then do in making sure that they had good grades in school and so forth. So that was something he just loved doing. Is that it? That's it. Okay. Any questions, comments? Please, those of you who know this, add something here. Richard, I was going to make you talk.
Yeah.
No.
Because if anyone,
That was my first comment when he asked, too.
yeah, we're definitely hoping if anyone wanted to share some stories of the early teams, this is our chance to really kind of record those. And yeah, oh, here you go. And this mic's a little finicky. You got to hold it a little bit far away from your face there. Here you go.
I just wanted to mention about when you got the club hockey program going, their practice facility was down by the, well, I think it's really actually where the firehouse area is, where they have the theater, and it was played on a pond, and you had to scrape that, and Al Wilkins put together something, what was the name of what he called it?
It was the Verona Zamboni.
Veroni, that's what it was.
Verona Zamboni.
And so it was a tractor with a billy blade and a hot water thing on the back, and that's what you used to smooth out the ice. And once the ice went out there, because it was kind of iffy, the season was over in terms of practice facilities. So that's where you brought up the club hockey program to get the varsity players. So it's just something that's a part of history that will probably be forgotten.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, does he still have that? Because he could donate that to our archives.
I don't know.
No, nobody ever took a picture of that, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But
Some stories you wanted to show, or to show us?
the Verona Lumberyard gave us, the youth hockey program, a hog fair in the house. And Don Patch, who was in the construction business, we got fathers together and we insulated it and put, sheeted it on the inside, put electric heater, baseboard heater in it, and then a bench along the back side of it. The Wisconsin Power and Light moved the poles from Harriet Park to put on either end of the rink. And the kids sold Johnson candy bars for 50 cents a piece, and we got a quarter of that. And that happened to be the year that Mark Johnson played on the championship hockey team for the USA. 1980. And the kids would stand out in front of Miller's Market and sell candy bars. And all of the little old ladies would say, someday maybe you'll be playing out there on the Olympic team. We sold candy bars and we had no trouble at all. And that money went to help build that first rink. And there was a lot of extra, people, Amersley gave us some bulldozer time and so on. But it finally kind of got, it was a kind of thing where we had men that would volunteer to put the boards up after the ice went up. One year we had a very cold November, and we put the boards up right around Thanksgiving time. And we had a very warm Christmas. And Jeff Baxter and I both had fishing waders on, and we had to pull the boards to the shore because it was a lake. The ice went up. And then had to put the ice back in. The Zamboni is quite a story, and there's all kinds of stories that you could go on and on about that. But it was a great time. And Mary, you're right. The business of the high school team and the youth hockey, the kids, wanted to play on that high school team sometime. And so it was something to look forward to. And it helped, both programs were helped through each other. No question about it.
Right.
And it was great. Our grandson played on the team this year for the state tournament. So it was fun to see him play for 2 years in a row for the state tournament. Too bad they didn't win it, but they had a good time.
And don't forget the help we gave to the Middleton hockey team by building the ice hockey rink here first.
Say that again there?
I said, don't forget the help we gave to the Middleton hockey team by building the rink here first and joining with them in a co-op. And so they had some place for their kids to skate too. So,
Curious, what was your name?
Stan Dingle.
Oh, okay. Where was that first rink you were talking about that melted?
Well, it's right
Practice
where
theater is now.
right where the Performing Arts Theater is now.
Oh,
By
okay.
the firehouse.
Literally right on the footprint of where that building is. Great.
And just, you know, that rink actually was a floating rink.
Yep, it was
It was actually a floating rink. When they designed it, it actually was floating because I remember over at Harry Park when they had the first rink over at Harry Park, it actually had one, I think the contour of the property was, I think it was, one side was kind of down, so you get dirt on one side unless they flooded the rink a lot. And I know Bob Newcomb had a big input on that rink at that time, first starting out, before we moved it over to where it was currently the floating rink by where the theater is now, you know. And I want to touch on the fanfare was kind of crazy because it was amazing how many people come out to watch the games. It was like, I was kind of taken back by being on the rink and looking up on seeing the fans and the students, like, holy cow, they're all here to see us. Like, wow, you know, so we got tons of people that came out to watch the game. It was pretty cool, you know. Big supporters of the students as well as parents. It was really, really just a treat to see that, you know.
What's your name?
I'm Kip Trainer.
And were you on that first team?
Yeah.
How did they find you? Did they find you skating at a rink somewhere, or how did you end up being on the team?
I actually played for Southside Hockey before that in Madison, and so I know Carol Marshall was a big input back in the day for, you know, Southside. So she has a ton of boys that skated, and yeah, and like Joel's the coach of Verona High School now, so one of what, 5 boys. Even their daughter Carol played. I played with their daughter Carol back at Southside, so go way back, you know. So it was good times, totally good times, yeah.
We had Southside, what was it, Westmoreland and West Flyers.
And then
And they were, you know, all of the first team were mostly boys that played in either of those 3 hockey programs as youth hockey. We were different because we moved here from Eau Claire. And so Richard got his hockey experience playing outdoor hockey, which they had in Eau Claire. But you know, it was a gathering together of kids that had various youth hockey, and as you pointed out, some had very little. So Gary had to kind of teach everybody how to skate, and I know my boys, we had 4 that went through your program, Mary, and the only thing they complained about was the one-leg skating drill.
Yeah, I would have complained about that too.
What is that? Can you tell us what that was?
I'll let one of the guys.
You had to see how far you could skate on one leg.
Not just glide, you actually had to try to get on your edges and push.
And push.
Wow.
One skate.
On one skate.
It wasn't bad. I guess I didn't mind it.
You remember that too, Kip?
Yeah, but it wasn't too bad for the, I guess, more seasoned skaters, you know. I think that coming from the youth hockey to go into that, it was, I guess, just something to build on and grow on, so it was not too bad, for me anyways, but that's just me, so.
It's teaching your edges, right?
Yes.
One last thing, I see Judy is here, but the very first president of the Verona Youth Hockey was Judy's husband, Glenn. And Glenn kind of got his arm twisted by Dr. Brandenburg, saying that, you know, we just can't be playing Monroe and McFarland and Mount Horeb. We got to get into the Dane County League, and the only way we're going to do that is to have more ice time. So he's told Glenn, I'll give you $1,500 if you go out and buy some more ice time, and we'll join the second half of the Dane County League, Youth Hockey League. And so that's how Verona Youth Hockey got started.
I'm kind of wandering down memory lane here, but we had two boys that played in Verona Hockey, and as I write or I speak, our middle son, Brad Colby, lives in Middleton. His boys play for Middleton Hockey. He has a rink now in his backyard. And when you talk about Al Wilkins, who was our neighbor, getting a Zamboni set up, our son Brad has a similar thing on a red wagon that he pulls around on his rink with hot water in it, and somehow it kind of mimics what Al Wilkins did 40 years ago. So they kind of brought back a lot of memories. Thank you, Mary, for coming.
So does he currently have that machine?
He rigged it up. No.
No, not anymore.
He made his own.
What does he have it currently?
I think the city still has the old Verona Zamboni,
They do.
but I'm not sure of that yet.
To get a picture of that, or even for what your son has, you know? It'd be kind of cool.
This is pretty rustic.
Doesn't matter, it's still memorabilia, you know?
Well, the Badgers gave us worn out blades from their Zamboni, and they also gave worn out blades to McFarland. And that's how that was built. The boards were all built by the Verona JCs. I don't know what year that was, but it was probably 74 or 75.
Yeah, because I was over at,
Those were the ones that were at Harriet Park, and those same boards were used at the rink
right.
over at behind the firehouse.
Thank you, Judy.
I have two things to talk about. I'm from Milwaukee, and I used to play at the Hartmire when I was a band. It was back in the early 60s. Is that still around, the Hartmire?
Yeah.
Okay. Second, in the 60s, it was Milwaukee Country Day, which turned into University School. But we used to play Madison Memorial, La Follette, I think East and West. But we had, I won't tell you who won, but no, I think we split.
Are you wearing a hockey jersey there right now?
I am wearing a hockey jersey. It's it's not University School, but it's the Bulldogs. That's not your Bulldogs. Your
okay.
Cedarburg High School.
I saw the orange, thought maybe it was the Wildcats, you know?
Yeah.
If you turn it inside out, we can pretend it's the Wildcats.
Well, yeah.
What was your name?
Got the right color in it.
George.
Thank you, George.
Cedarburg? Is that a Cedarburg jersey?
Yes.
Okay. We have some grandsons that play on the Cedarburg High School team. One, he's a goalie.
Anyone else got some stories from those early teams that they want to share with the group?
I can tell a side story.
Please, yeah. What's your name?
My name's Marcy Montgomery, and I grew up in the house that is now the Sherwin-Williams store, but that house was across the street from the ice rink. And ice rink was a benefit to me because I actually used to go figure skate on the hockey rink. But if the hockey players came along to practice, I played hockey with someone like Kip. Kip and I played hockey before on the ice rink because I would figure skate, and then, you know, it was really for the hockey players, so then I would play hockey. So I benefited my hockey skills by playing on that ice rink, and when I moved to Chicago, I actually ended up playing floor hockey on a co-ed team and had extremely good hockey skills because I played hockey with the hockey team. Side story.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Did your figure skating career take off at any point?
Well, I probably became a better skater because I can skate backwards extremely well, backwards and forwards, with a stick as well, you know, but it helped my figure skating because you have to have the skills to move, right? You need the skills.
Yeah.
If you're going to play hockey, you got to be able to go forward, backwards, sideways, whatever.
Cool. Thank you for sharing.
Cool. That's a side story.
I'm sure the players also remember New Year's Day morning. Gary thought that all the players should come to practice on New Year's Day morning at 8 o'clock. He said it kept them from getting in trouble on New Year's Eve. It didn't. Naive as he was, right? I think he was trying to punish you anyway.
Well, Madison Memorial always used to have a skate at, what was that, Garner?
Yeah, at Garner, right.
Coach Levine always would have the Memorial kids skate at Garner Park on Memorial Day. So we decided we were gonna go out there at that same time.
Not Memorial Day.
Or, I'm sorry, on New Year's Day. Madison Memorial kids.
Yeah.
And so I think it was, I don't know if Kip, if you were part of that or not, it might have been my senior year, we decided we were gonna go skate with them and kind of scrimmage, because we didn't get to play the Madison schools at that time. So it was a lot of fun getting out there, and of course, myself, I grew up playing with a lot of those guys at Westmoreland, so it was just a fun skate to get out there on that day.
You're Mary's son, right?
Yes.
So does she remember it, right? What was it from you to did you go to him and say, like, I want to play hockey in Verona? What was that like for you from your perspective?
Yeah, I didn't, the only option for me, originally I thought I could go play, because Middleton had started a club team, I think, when I was in 8th grade. But their rule was you had to go to Middleton High School. So obviously that was no longer on the table. And having grown up in Verona, I didn't want to lose my friends. But the idea of going to a different high school and making new friends, that just wasn't for me. So, and going to Edgewood was my only option as far as playing hockey. So I don't remember our conversation, how it all started really, but she probably gives me more credit than I deserve. I think it was more them wanting me to continue to play than me wanting to play, but.
He's wrong. He actually got us into hockey. When he was 8 years old, he decided he wanted to play hockey. Well, he said, Mom, I want to play hockey. I said, okay, I've got my old hockey stick downstairs. When I was a kid, we used to play pond hockey all the time. And no, I want to play on a team. So, okay, talked to my boss at the time, who 2 kids played hockey, and he said, well, I think you should start with Westmoreland. And poor Rich, he had all hand-me-down used equipment. And
everybody did.
Well, everybody did, but yours was, yeah. And so that's how he got started at Westmoreland. And played
And I
there.
hated it. I cried every day.
I wasn't going to tell about that.
Until, I think it was the next season, she bribed me with a new helmet, a blue helmet, which didn't match our uniforms at all. We were black and red. And but it was that second season that I actually started to enjoy playing, and from there it just snowballed into being pretty much a passion for me.
And your kids play today?
Yeah, these are my boys right here. So this is Adam, he plays for Middleton, and Jake's a freshman at UW, played on the club team. And he and I skated men's league this morning.
Oh, cool.
So.
Is it like it was back then for you guys? Do your rinks melt, and do you have to have hair blowers warming up your skates? Has it changed at all since what Mary's talking about? Just curious.
They're spoiled.
Yeah, they're pretty spoiled.
Well, thank you for sharing. Anyone else have any other stories they want to throw on there for us to hear? Yeah, Ruth has a question.
I just wondered about the capsule conference. Who was in that, or did you have to travel, or did forming the conference?
Yeah, we had Verona, McFarland, Sun Prairie's JV, Mount Horeb, Edgewood's JV, Wanakee, and Beaver Dam.
Okay, that's what I wondered, if you had to go further, that you played up in Marinette, and but that was for a tournament.
Yeah, those were, Marinette was a state hockey tournament that we got to.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
We also would play 2, 3, 4 different tournaments in the state. So we got to know where the good ranks and
Cold rank were.
Huh?
Lacrosse. Cold rank lacrosse,
Oh,
was-
yeah, and where the outdoor cold rinks.
That was the Oktoberfest
Yeah.
Yes,
pavilion that's right along Highway 53. If you
Right by
ever
the
go
river there.
north from, out of La Crosse towards Eau Claire, it's right along the highway. There's also, now there's a steam engine parked next to it. But that was probably the shortest and narrowest rink that I ever saw the boys play on, and also the coldest.
also the coldest is right.
Because the ice was, well, it was just a sheet of ice on a concrete slab with a roof over it.
Chicken net on the back of it. It's chicken net.
Yeah, it had chicken nets on the back. Mark still complains about tearing his jersey all up on the chicken net. Then they had 2 warming barrels on each end of that, and the fans would be huddled around the warming barrels in their snowmobile suits.
Barry, I have to ask you a question. I love it when someone's, and we've had 2 of these meetings where someone said, "Over my dead body, this will happen." The library one, remember that, Ruth? Someone said, do you ever, you didn't name the over my dead body person, we won't make you name them, but do you ever see them again after that? In Miller's, you just give them a little nod like, hey, it looks like we got our hockey. Did you ever see them again? Or do you remember who it was even?
Oh, I remember who it was. I won't give you a name.
Are they still in town?
I'm not sure. He's long retired, so I
Okay.
don't know.
But you never had that moment where you saw him in Miller's like, hey, we just took state here, almost took state here.
I probably did back then. I wasn't real nice about it sometimes.
I have a couple quick questions. One is, what was your involvement with the ice hockey rink, or did you have, so I don't mean to be dumb about that, but I'd just be curious. And the second question is, I'd like to know how many teams the Dingle grandchildren are skating on. So.
3.
3, the Dingles are on 3 teams. I was co-chair of the finance for the new hockey rink. Gary was very involved in building that under John Shelfeffer. And we saved a ton of money. We had a lot of volunteers. And Gary's a builder. And he said, that's fine, you can have all the volunteers you want, they can paint. He did not want anybody who was not in the building trades. And he got a lot of his men to donate a lot of time to build that rink as well. John did a marvelous job of coordinating that rink building over there. Maybe you can get John to come in and talk about the rink. Gary,
Oscar Meyer gave the compressors, and they're still using them.
yeah, those were donated from Oscar Meyer, but they were in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, Jerry Hoppy.
Okay.
Jerry Hoppy and Gary were pretty good friends, and his son played. And so he took a semi down to Chicago to get those compressors and bring them back. And yes, and there's enough compressor there for another rink. But that was a huge donation. And I'm not sure who got that for us. Might have been Burish's, I'm not sure. They really headed up getting that rink started. So, yeah, Gary did the maintenance on that rink for several years for nothing.
Are there any hockey rinks in the state of Wisconsin that's owned by the school or on the school grounds?
University school, probably.
Yeah.
And I was gonna, yeah, it's a loaded question, university school is.
Arrowhead's got a rink.
And Arrowhead, you're right.
Prairie's actually is on their
Yeah.
school grounds.
When, I told you about, we played a lot of the Madison schools, but that's before I was on the team. When I got on the team in the late 60s, early 70s, we played all the Catholic schools in Chicago. Fenwick, Brother Rice, Loyola. And the nice thing about it is they always came to us because we didn't charge, ice time as they would down in Chicago. And what was the last thing I want to say? Yeah, I guess that's why University School is so good. I guess they won the championship again this year.
Yes.
They've got their own rink, and these guys start skating at 6 in the morning, and et cetera.
I've just got an aside here. I didn't have anything to do with hockey, but kind of an interesting thing. Years ago, my parents and I, my sister, came from the Eagle's Nest down in the corner of the intersection. And my parents went out of business and the building was torn down in 1970. Well, when the hockey rink was built, it was called the Eagle's Nest. And you can't believe all the people that came up to me throughout the course of months and said, "Was it ever nice that they named the Eagle's Nest after your parents?" I said it had nothing to do with it.
That's good, John.
I'm sorry, what town was that?
Oh, John had his family had a restaurant right here in Verona, like right on the corner, so you're probably just a block from where it was.
I got you.
Great, well, I just definitely, Mary, do you have anything else you want to add, or should I have people come up? If you want to come up, there's some clippings up here and some pictures, Lindenborgs and stuff, and I just want to say, Mary, you did wonderfully. Thank you so much for doing this. This is exactly the kind of stories we love to tell and hear here. So everyone come up and give Mary a handshake.
I'm in love with a girl